Lecour, live with special guest Curtis Freeman. I am the host of Listen Up Men, and today I am so happy to have you with us here on Listen Up Men. Curtis, how are things with you?
I'm listening up. I'm, I'm great, Marsha. Nice to
But,
finally chat with you. I dodged you for a long time, but you finally caught me, and I'm looking forward
well,
to this.
you're always on the go. So let's jump right in. So tell us about the work that you're currently involved with, and are you aligned with your passion and purpose?
um, yes, yes, and yes. For my work, I work hard at not working. I Musicians and athletes, they play for money, but athletes have to work out, so it's better to be a musician. And I I don't know if off the top, I should say that I am a musician and a music educator. And I think sometimes there's a little, I think often, most of the time, there's too much weight put on vocation. It's a real identifier for people, like, what do you do? And the what you do in life, uh, I don't think should identify you with your job, right? So um, it should be one of the we all have to work. We all have to make a living. But so I mean, the way your questions posed about aligning with your core principles and that, I think it's good. I've been working really hard at making my vocation line up with my things that are important to me, but it's just kind of fallen into that in the last couple of years, and it's great because uh, I think the most important things in life are relational, right? So I have a nice blend of theater shows I do, which is a connection with the audience, and but then on a more intimate level, the club dates I do, you can get to know people a little better, and then with my teaching I teach at two different colleges. I can go a little deeper, hopefully have some influence with some students, and I get inspired by them as well. And then I do volunteer work. I play at church, and I've volunteered at a couple different places musically. And then I record, and hopefully that can live on past me when my family are home builders, and I can drive around and say, "Hey, my grandfather built that house, or my dad built that place." So I don't have that opportunity other than recording. So it's all kind of meshed together really nice, and I have a really nice balance right now, and I'm blessed with that. And yeah.
Now, how did you get into music in the first place?
I'm from a real outlier town, Espanola in Northern Ontario, and a lot of incredible musicians have come from there. And there's a bunch of reasons, and it won't be as easy for that to happen now with internet and a couple things. There was a really um, great music teacher that was really vested with the students, Brian Wilson, and there was three different school boards: French, English, and Aboriginal. All so it was a wealthy school when a lot of schools had music funding pulled from them. Um, so there was great instruments there, and there's a lot of travel with the band, high school band. So not having like a high school football team, it was kind of cool to be able to go across the country with the band. And some great musicians have come out of there. Brian Adams, keyboard player. Kevin Bright's a first call guitar player. He's played on lots of Grammy albums. Terry Sawchuk co-wrote with Alanis Morissette her Giant album. There's a great Christian rock band that came out of there. I work at Metalworks Studios, one of the biggest producers, or one of the engineers there. He's from. So it's a really cool hotbed of talented people there, which was inspiring. And I have a twin brother who's from the same high school, and he's a professional musician in the city. And if I look like one of Marsha's old guests, this is my first time on this program, but my twin was on a week ago, maybe. So anyway, that the music thing, and it wasn't really an option. Like I said, I'm from 4 generations of home builders and carpenters, and my dad said, "Do what you want for a living, but don't do what I do." He tries to tell people now that he wanted me to be a carpenter, but I don't think that's true. My parents have been supportive, and I got a scholarship for music, so it wasn't an option. I was paid to go to school, so I went.
Wow. And so tell us now, why do you get it? Why did you get into music?
Um, it was the main thing I was good at, and I had the. I don't really believe. I firmly don't believe in natural talent. Um, I believe in advantages. If you're tall, you're going to have an advantage in basketball. That hasn't stopped a lot of average height men, but um, the I, I had the passion and drive to work through that, and uh, it just I found my place there. And I grew up as a twin. You're always looking for your identity, and I really identified as, okay, the bass is my thing. Even though my brother was a musician, the saxophone was his thing. So I just found a home and even found a community with it. And being from a small town, there was 1 or 2 other bass players, but just the bass player magazine that I subscribed to, and that I just thought, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. And it's a supportive instrument. If you carry that to other areas of your life, you're supportive in different situations, and that helped a lot. And uh, just kind of a love for it. And then, to be honest, a lack of not knowing what else I would do. Lose my fingers as a carpenter or use them as a bass player. And it went from bass player to musician, and it went from musician to entertainer. And when I found that, someone explained to me when we were filling out forms at customs at the airport, I said, "Oh man, I got held back again." And they wanted to ask me a pile of questions. And he said, "Try putting entertainer instead of musician." And I did the next time, and they just whizzed me through right away. And I was flying to Rome to work on a cruise ship. So from Toronto to Rome, I thought a lot about the difference between being a musician and an entertainer. And just in that thought process, and your thoughts are so strong, and you can change so much by really meditating on it. Going from musician to entertainer was a huge move for me, even though it was a small difference change I made in my mind, because nobody ever talks about a starving entertainer as they talk about starving artist or starving musician. As soon as I decided I was an entertainer, I joined the biggest, most wealthy occupation in the world. So now, as an entertainer, I realize that what I give musically is a transaction with the audience, something that changes them, which they receive, and it's worth money. Not to everybody, but the people who resonate with that. I believe I changed my life with that.
And that's interesting because I've seen you perform many times in different venues, in different musical contexts and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I have to say that when I see you perform, your music and how you perform and how you interact with the audience and just your whole state of being really does create some kind of change within me. And I come out of there feeling so uplifted, so motivated, so positive. So there's really something to be said that when you are up there entertaining, there's something I would say it's even transactional and even transformational too, where you are creating change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's quite profound.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and there's another thing too I want to jump in here with, that there's research that shows that when a person attends a live musical gig every 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
that their longevity increases by 9 years. That's significant. So there's something intrinsic about music that has a direct impact on our physical wellness or our physical structure or what have you?
Well, it must be tenfold if you're performing, because if you've ever seen the Rolling Stones. I think they're in their late billions now, and they're still going strong.
Yes, exactly. Like they're what, in their 70s?
Yeah.
And they've been around what, 50, 55 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's quite something. So tell us about what you're doing musically right now, today.
Practicing, learning songs. Um, I'm I'm playing tonight in Port Credit with the Deadbeats. It's a band that I play with when I'm in town on Wednesday nights at Rock and Docks. And then tomorrow night I'm playing with Lazo, who's a Greek instrument, recently moved to Canada, and he plays a couple thousand-year-old instrument called the lira. It's like an upright violin. It's really cool. I recorded on his album just over a year ago, and that's going to be a cool show in Etobicoke. Playing with Pablo on Sunday in Midland, and I'm his bass player for all his shows, so that's going well, and that keeps me busy. And yeah, lots of shows and recordings, not happening all the time.
Now, just on the side here, Pablo released a PBS special sometime, I guess, what, a year or two ago. You were part of that.
Yep.
That took place over in Greece, and now it's really it's being played right across the USA. I understand.
Right, it's being played all over Mexico right now.
Wow.
He's doing a radio tour now. I saw that as an earlier live Facebook thing, and we're going there at the end of November. But that has to do with the concert that we recorded early in February with in Guadalajara with the 93-piece orchestra. So that's going to be the next concert that airs, and we're already talking about the next one after this, and it hasn't even played yet. So there's a lot of Pablo's so busy. We have 2 albums. Well, one album is the live album that'll be from Guadalajara, but we have an album with all different vocalists on it, which is incredible, and no time to release it yet because they keep playing this live from Toria one, but it's been great for us.
Well, the live on Toria, like that's had huge success.
Yeah. It's beautiful, and it was you know how you take a picture of something or you record it, and you look back later, it's just not the same. But we watched that video, and we just feel like we're there again. So we really kind of got lightning in a bottle on that one, I think.
Now, you also partner up with Carson sometimes, and so sometimes from time to time you do some live gigs.
Yeah, the Freeman Brothers Band, we have a couple shows throughout the year. I mean, my brother and I make a living as being sideman mostly. We, as a musician, you want to express yourself, and you end up doing a song here or there, or an album, or a gig where you're leading. But most of our careers are playing for other people. So, and we're fortunate to be quite busy with that. So, when we play with each other, it's kind of filling in the spaces, or it's a really intentional thing. So we try to do a concert up in our hometown every other year. It's usually a Christmas type show, and we're trying to get on the same page to be more intentional about having something more regular, and a recording to go with it. But our instruments don't match that well. Really, if we really wanted to exploit the twin thing, he would be playing guitar or drums, so that would fit with the bass better, or I would be playing maybe trumpet so we could be in a horn section. But they say the instrument chooses you, so we're not too worked up about it.
Well, I hope that we get to hear the Freeman Brothers between now and whenever, like sooner than later. So I'm just planting that seed there, Curtis.
Yeah. Well, that'd be good.
Yeah, you did a gig, I think, within the past few months in the GTA. That was fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fun. it's always fun. So when you do it, you're like, oh man, I guess we should do this more. And it was a great band.
Well, the holiday season is coming up. Hint, hint, hint.
Well, we do have a good Christmas repertoire because I arranged a whole pile of songs for Christmas songs last year for our show up north and a show we did in GTA. So never say never, but I don't want to false advertise. I'll
Right,
put is happening.
right. And so let's take a detour here. What do you think are some of the issues that men face in their work today? Could be musicians or could be men in general with the work that they do.
Let's stick to musicians because that's what I know best. I
Sure.
start talking about. I could talk about forklift drivers because I used to do that for Pepsi and at the paper mill in Espanola. But stay away from the forks. No. um, I think there's a lot of things. Uh, Alcohol is a big one in clubs, and that like it's everywhere. If you're playing a lot of venues, you're really they're hiring entertainment, but you're really selling drinks, and people buy you rounds a lot. So I've been very intentional about not drinking, and I've just seen so many people slip away to that, and it's honest to God, it's an occupational hazard for musicians, and I have very close friends that are have a lot of trouble with that, and it's really railroaded them. And I think there's a lot of us guys are really hard on ourselves, and we're competing in this competition that doesn't exist. So there's if I'm if I'm competing against someone else who doesn't know it, they're winning, right? But um, competing, I mean, a lot of musicians are trying to be the very best that they can be, and at their instrument, be the best in the world, and that's just an unreasonable thing. And there's depression for it, or people are guys are really kind to everyone else, but not themselves. I think that's really hard. And there's a lot of unhappy people out there because you do a couple good gigs, and I'm getting too old. With sports, you retire after a while, and with music, you don't. And sometimes it's hard to be as physical as a drummer as you used to be, or you can't play as fast as you'd want to be, and you're not as beautiful, or they want younger people, and that's frustrating for a lot of guys.
Now, what do you think are some of the issues around men's health from your perspective?
Well, those are the same ones in mental
Yeah.
health and going into negative places and negative solutions for that, and double entendre on solutions. But I think when if you are entertaining, people are used to looking at you to be enlightened in some ways. So you can really disappoint people if you're posting really negative stuff, and I see so much of that. And I think it's just a general unhappiness that we have to fight back against.
And I just want to jump in here about something. You mentioned that Brian Adams went to the same high school as you did. Did I hear that correctly?
No, his keyboard player is
Oh,
from.
his keyboard
Yeah.
player. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just had that thought. And what is one or two powerful tips that you want to leave for men today? What do you want to tell them about
Well,
anything?
I think it's hard to be gentle is not manly in a lot of ways, and we have to kind of be kind to ourselves and just kind of be happier. And I think that can happen through positive transactions with other people. And if you're unhappy, there is a solution, and it's worked for me. And I'm not preaching at anyone, but anything that's helped me, I'll share it for free. But I'm on this kick lately, and I'm on the very early stages of writing about it actually. So I think small transactions are just overlooked, and they're the most important things in our lives. So if you go and buy a coffee and you hold a door for someone and they're thankful for it, they've completed that transaction. It's not manipulative to try to get friends, but if you look at people, if you see a stranger coming, we're so quick to avert our eyes and just not. But if you engage with that person that is serving you, or you're serving, or you're sitting beside on a train, or sharing a Uber ride or something, you can really have a positive influence with that person, a positive interaction. And if you just listen and you're both friendly and you go your separate ways, you might never see them again, but you actually have a perfect relationship with that person. And even the people we love the most, we don't have perfect relationships with. So we need to store those up in our emotional bank accounts, because we know there's people that will draw on us for that happiness later, and it'll just be accumulative. And if you get in those good habits, you'll be happy.
That's a wonderful note to end on.
Well, it's so great seeing you, Marsha.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Really loved having you here, Curtis.
Well, for what it's worth, thanks to everyone tuning in, and have an awesome day and be good to yourself.
Now, one thing I want to say, you're playing tonight with the Deadbeats out in Port Credit, and that's at Rockin' Docks?
Yep.
And what time is that?
8 p.m.
Okay. And you go till
Maybe
midnight?
We're being deadbeats.
Oh, the other thing I want to add in here, you also are a stand-up comedian. Like, you are really witty with your word.
Yeah. Well, class clown needs to harness those skills, so it was destined to be an entertainment career.
Thank you so much, Curtis.
Thanks, Marsha. Lots of love to you.
Be well.